welcome everyone to our weekly community update. It's just me today. We have a few people in the list here, and we'll get I suppose some more joining as we go along. So every once in a while, just Adam or I end up doing these updates as something comes up, and today you got me, so it'll probably be a pretty short one. I can usually ramble along kind of pointlessly much faster without Adam distracting me. All right, so we'll get straight into what we want to talk about today. Just kind of recap, what we're approaching, the approach we're using this year for community updates is a little more focused on the practical applications of what you guys can be doing with the tool, and most importantly, with the engagements you need to be having with your clients. So we've been talking about the importance of, the architecture assessment and running through that. And we want to re-emphasize again that, Q2 is coming up. It's at the end of this month. So you need to be on top of your inviting, your invitation list there, getting those appointments set with your clients. I've done this enough with you guys and by myself to know that, we spend a lot of time developing the report. We spend a lot of time thinking about the things we're going to put into it and, being prepared to do that. But honestly, I feel sometimes when you add up the entire effort level that goes into a QBR, one of the largest pieces is just getting the client to schedule, to confirm that yes, they will be at this QBR. So I totally sympathize with the challenges you're having on that. I understand and appreciate those. So start now. All right. So start now, because there may be one or two that are going to schedule with you, right away every time, but there are plenty enough of your clients that you're going to have to send the bloodhounds out to get them, to track them down and get them to hit accept on those meeting invites. So start that now. I will say that, again, some of my own experience, but I think more importantly, what we hear from members in our community is the more consistent we are with these QBRs and the structure and the value that we can bring to organizations with what we're doing in these QBRs, the easier it gets to confirm these, the easier it is to put these on the roadmaps, even some of the bigger engagements. If the client understands what you're trying to do and you're able to properly set expectations, it is entirely feasible that you can sit out a meeting request for a client that says, hey, we're going to do our annual event and we're going to block out 3 hours for that. We're going to block out 4 hours for that. And you will still get engagement and buy-in from your clients on that because they see the value. They understand what you're trying to do. They know you're not going to show up with a binder full of closed tickets and want to go over them one by one, right? So they understand, what you're trying to do and how it's going to help their business. So again, Adam and I are going to continue to encourage you on this until we hear 100% adoption from everybody that they got their QBRs lined up and on schedule. We hear from a lot of clients, some are having success, some aren't. There always seems to be, some customers that will and others that they struggle with every time. I think that's just life, but we're going to continue working at it, to make this process better and better. And ultimately, if the value of those engagements is really high, then the effort level going forward to get them back into those meetings will be less and less. All right. They will be drawn to those meetings rather than trying to avoid those meetings. All right, so let's jump in and talk about some of the key topics this week for getting in on those quarterly QBRs. So those QBRs, and I guess I'm going to start maybe a collection pod or something. I'm really curious about all the different names. So right now, QBRs is what we all talk about, but not very many people use QBRs as the uh, title of your meetings. All right, we're hearing executive business reviews, enterprise or entrepreneurial business reviews. So I've heard a couple of on the E's that might not be right. I'm not sure. Strategic business reviews, technical business reviews, technical business reviews. We seem to be swapping out the Q for something else, but it's a variety of things. Find your niche. That's great. I really, I think when you take that and make it your own, I think that's a positive step. All right. So here is kind of the general sort of things we want to talk about today. It was in the newsletter that Adam sent out. We want to talk briefly about time boxing, how to keep on track with that, meeting agendas, some communication tips and tricks. I'll get that out there, right? And I'll show a sample report here, and we can talk through that. So let's kind of dive into the first one there. Let's talk about time boxing and what do we mean there. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on these. Might help if I share the right screen. Bear with me, because I think you guys know a lot of this, right? But we want to make sure that you understand how it's fitting into the engagements that we're trying to have. So probably one of the just the easiest thing to do with time boxing is, follow the template we have in here. All right, lay this out. If you guys are doing any L10 meetings, I know that's become pretty popular, and I've been through a lot of those. They seem very effective. So I mean, this is a great tool to say, hey, this is what we're going to do. Here's the time frame that we've set aside on that. And now this is not necessarily something that you have to stick with and not be unwavering with. Okay. So this is something that allows you to lay out there with your clients and understand when you're off track. All right. So if you're doing some sort of, a 5-minute review of some goals or next minute stuff here, from the 5-minute part to, the halfway through part in this particular one, we're giving ourselves 25 minutes to do that. That's okay. If some meetings run longer, just understand that when we go over in any particular time box, it's going to be at the cost of another time box. All right. And we want to stay focused on our meeting time frames here. This is one of the values that I really think you can drive with your clients is, hey, we're not going to take up your whole afternoon unexpectedly. I'm not going to just say, hey, can we come over at 10 o'clock, next Thursday morning and show up and not leave until 1, right? So they're going to understand, hey, Skip's going to be here at 10. We've got a meeting from 10 to 11. Or maybe Skip said, hey, we've got a lot to talk about. We've got a meeting from 10 to 11:30. All right. And just setting those expectations with your clients. This is also here in the time box is also a good place where you can assign some of the roles. So if you have a little bit of a multifaceted sort of meeting where you need to mix a little bit of strategic along with some operational or tactical elements here, you can define that and organize that in your meeting. So if you have strategic elements, don't spatter them, all throughout the meeting. Either put them all up at the front or all towards the end. And that way you can allow those that need to participate in just the strategic to be there for just that point. And I do think there's a huge value of putting that out there and, saying, hey, the first 20 minutes of this, Mr. CEO, we need you in on this meeting. We need to talk about these sort of things. And then at the end of that, you can say, all right, we've talked about the strategic elements that, we're on our agenda today. If you'd like to stick around for that, that's great. We've got some tickets we need to review. We got open tickets we need to talk about, and we're going to dive into those. And that's a great opportunity for your clients to understand that I can show up to this meeting, get the value that I need out of it, and then I don't have to stick around. I don't have to be, bombarded, punished, endure, whatever they sometimes get into those mindsets when they're kind of forced to listen and process information that's not really necessary for what they need out of their IT providers at that moment. All right. So that's kind of the trick on time boxing is, again, it's pretty straightforward. Just put it up at the front. All right. If you will just make it an important part of what you're trying to do, then that's going to help. That's also going to help, keep things from running off topic. If something comes up in your monthly, I'm sorry, not your monthly, but your review of your monthly goals. All right. Then if that's going to take you off track, drag you out into the weeds, so to speak, and take you along, you can identify that easily and say, we're not going to have enough time to talk about that and treat it with the importance that it needs within the scope of what we're doing here. All right. So let's schedule another time. Let's take that offline. Let's, get the right people in the room so that we can answer your questions rather than, me just relaying all the questions. Those sort of type of statements can help you stay on track with your meetings. And give a little time for this. We again, in all of our strategic engagements, we have a templated agenda here. All right, that's for our monthly, quarterly, or annuals. We've got a template out there for you to start with. Now, everybody runs things just a little bit different. So you may want to, take this area out. Maybe, even for client to client, maybe that you have some customers that there's just no way you can start the seriousness or I'm not serious, maybe the important part of the conversation can't start until 10 minutes of shooting the breeze. All right. Everyone has to talk about how their sports team did, or, whatever's going on around the office. It's just maybe part of the culture. I was on a call the other day and another client, and they're from Texas. And so Miles from Managed Service Platform was kind of running the call, and he stepped back and he waited a little bit. He says, all right, so we got two Texans are on the call here. They've got to, talk their Texas talk for a little while. And he let us ramble on for a little bit. I was like, okay, you guys have talked, enough. Now it's time to get on track. And it was probably double the amount of time that we had spent on some other very similar calls throughout the week. That's just the way it is. Miles recognized that. We built in a little time there and we're able to accommodate that. So the important part here is, so kind of wrapping up on, the time boxing, the agendas and all this, is you do want to have a format for this. You do want to have a plan. Now, in a lot of your organizations, I know it's just a few of you that are doing this. All right. So that's a lot easier. You can decide for yourself. Now we're seeing, I think, like what we should be, we're seeing the growth of that account management team. And I don't want to give it too much of a name because it looks a lot different for a lot of different organizations, but the people that are being responsible for these more strategic engagements is growing. All right. And they're all going to want to do it a little bit different, especially if you have senior people doing that. Those are the ones that Adam and I call the unicorns. All right. They're the ones that are really good at maybe having these technical conversations in a strategic, sort of format of, talking the business drivers, but understanding the technical constraints that go along with those. Someone that really kind of, is able to put it all together is a unicorn. And we've started to launch VCIO programs headed up by unicorns. And that makes sense, all right, because we can do most of the work. The problem is that doesn't scale well, all right? And you're going to get a process going and you're going, great, we've got something. Now I just need to find another unicorn, all right? Well, the first one was probably hard enough to find. And so finding another unicorn is going to be pretty difficult. And here's the rub. When you find the other unicorn, they're going to be, in all likelihood, they're going to be so different than the unicorn you already have. All right. So it's really going to be kind of pointless to just depend on the natural nature of whoever is doing these to facilitate a scalable process. All right. So whether it's one person or a team of a dozen people, you need a format. We need a framework. All right. We need some sort of plan with the complete understanding that yes, we are going to adapt this. It's going to be flexible. We can use it case by case so that it fits where it needs to be. But we overall need to have a plan and a framework for this so that it will scale, whether we're doing it just ourselves, all right, or it will scale across our team of 10 or 20 different account managers, along with all the other supporting staff that come in and help that process grow. All right, so that's kind of the high level stuff. Now I want to talk a little bit more about structuring the meeting itself. All right, so if we open up here, I'm looking at, let me show up, make sure I get it on the screen, you can see it. This is our strategic QBR. This is the HIT version. All right, and it is 1.0, but 2.0 is just about ready to come out. We are just that close to launching those reports. Those are in the background. We've launched them in some beta. So some of you in our beta program already have access to that. I don't think we have a strategic beta launch just yet, but we have been working on that to get that up and running. So that will be out very, very soon. So, but what we have here, you can see that the quarterly it's a lot. All right. So this is actually a huge report. The idea being is we have configured this report so that it will support a variety of different engagements. Right now, I have this report configured for a quarterly meeting. But if we look down here, I have options for monthly, for annual. I have SWOT analysis, I think are best done as separate breakout sessions. So it's a separate engagement, a separate meeting that you would have with the clients, but you would use this same report. All right, just configure it differently. This is, I think, a great feature to move these different widgets around. Reveal them, hide them when you need them, and bring this information out so that it's your talking points in that particular engagement. And when it's not, it's background data. It's there if you need it for some reason, but we're going to deprioritize it so that we can more effectively prioritize what we're talking about. So here in this one, I've got the quarterly agenda, and I am kind of coming up on the end of our time here. I don't have too much more to talk about. I say that if you've got any questions, go ahead and throw those in the chat, and we'll wrap up with a Q&A here in just a couple more minutes. So with this, I think very succinct, very almost condensed format, I think you are going to have a little bit better luck, or a bit better success in staying on track, just simply because there's not so much out there that could be distracting. So we have our agenda. We're focused in on that. I do like putting these executive summaries in there, although you may want to, it's probably best to kind of take them out of some meetings, reintroduce them at some other meetings, because remember, and I think this is a very valuable step here, take this and write a short narrative about the company. Do not copy and paste from the about page on their website. Okay, this is not just some sort of homework exercise or busy work that we're assigning you to do. This is actually a very, very valuable step. And when you take just a few minutes to write a very short narrative, not a lot, okay, but in your own words, write 2, 3, 5 sentences there, put some bullet points in there if that makes it easier for you, write something about the client. That is going to be very effective. I've talked quite a bit about that in the past, so I'm going to hide that and move on. All right, so next week we come up with our audit results overview. Again, from a strategic reporting perspective, I like this because this allows us the ability to jump into some other reports if we need to. All right, if the conversation leads that way, I can jump into our best practices. If the conversation comes up, they want to know, what their, budget objectives are, what some of their budget needs are in the coming year. We can jump into this one. This is actually an old report. All right. And I like this because I can bring old reports in. This is actually where the meat of their technical assessment or their stack assessment is being housed right now. So I can jump over to that. All right. But from here, we're jumping straight into kind of the high level project recommendations. And these are a little bit different than the project roadmaps that we talk about so much. All right. Again, this is a little bit more of a narrative. This is where we're probably in the early stages of the projects, right? Recommendations. We're not, on point and not in execution mode. And this is where we're talking about the benefits of some of these projects. And so you might not need to put this all here. All right. We might be able to get by with just using the project roadmap and just having the conversation from there. But if we do, all right, bring this up and again, follow this format. All right. So we've got some tips for you here. What's the description? What's the technical solution? And then this is the real empowering part. What are the business lines affected? Okay. Are we going to help their sales team out? Are we going to help out the accounts receivable team? What's going to go on there? Is this going to boost, if it's a manufacturing company, is this one thing going to, boost their manufacturing design turnaround time or something? And, I don't know, find the reason. There's got to be one. All right. There has to be a good business reason for this project. If not, there's really not a need to sell it to your client. Right? And just because we can doesn't mean we should, right? So, if we get in this mode of identifying business goals for our clients and making sure those are clearly communicated, it's going to benefit both the client and us. All right. They're going to see the value of what we're going to be able to do. And two, they're going to sign off on a lot more projects because they understand how it's helping their organization. So this is a very symbiotic sort of exercise that we go through. And I really like it. It's going to, I don't know, spare you all for a little bit. Those may be conversations for another meeting, but having these business lines affected and understanding that and communicating that to the client is really going to help, again, kind of what I said earlier, make these meetings much more valuable. If you're talking about business lines affected in your QBRs, you're going to get the attention of the key stakeholders and the strategic decision makers within your clients' organizations. If you're only talking about the technical solutions, you're going to lose their interest. Right? They need to hear how it's affecting their business. So with this, I can spend a lot of time talking about this particular area right here, or I can jump down here into the project roadmap, and I can spend a lot of time talking about this. You will notice that in this case, this is a strategic meeting, so there isn't a big assessment part to it. But if there were, I would have it down here at the bottom. Okay, it would be hidden and it would be at the bottom of this. I do feel there's a lot of value in structuring these widgets so that we stay at the upper part of the report. Right? The last thing, in fact, even this one, and I'll go ahead and fix it while I'm in here. This project roadmap is too far down, even though I don't have to go do too much. Let's make sure I get it right here. All right, here we go. So now I have moved my project roadmap up here. All right. If I need to talk more about the recommendations and some of their specific details, I can here. And then everything else in the report is down here. The last thing that you really want to be doing is scrolling back and forth, up and down the report. Even if you're using this to jump to different sections and then jump back to another section, there's just a bit of continuity there with your clients that I think you need to kind of stick on a single frame as much as you can. So utilize that. And this is kind of a small little tip here, but a nice little feature of the tool. Hidden down here, not hidden, but discreetly down here is this little chevron. All right. And I think this is kind of an underrated little tip here is as you work down through this report, if you do need to jump back up, don't hesitate to use that chevron. All right, that can get you back up to what you're talking about here, and maybe you need to get back into the agenda quickly. And that little chevron, I was talking with some folks about it earlier this week, and I think it can be really, really helpful to minimize some of the scrolling that we can do as we develop these reports. Some of them will get longer and longer and longer. And if you're prioritizing the widgets that you really need to be talking with at the top of the report and only going to the lower sections of the report when you need a specific bit of information, then jumping back up using the chevron. I know it's a small little sort of deal, but using this makes your transition between topics a bit more succinct and a bit more clear cut. You don't take the chance of scrolling past something like, oh, what was that out there? All right. And now you're all distracted, right? Because they're talking about some information that's actually on cue for another meeting or needs to be in another meeting. We can just kind of keep things focused and succinct in what we're trying to do. All right, guys. So that's about all I have for today. I haven't seen any questions come through on the chat. So review here, make sure I have covered the topics that we were going to plan on. I apologize, I don't have the topics for next week, but we are going to be continuing on this thought process of getting ready for our QBRs, getting Q2 QBRs up and running. So today, right now, okay, if you budget, I think the meeting invite for this, it shows up in your calendar, is an hour long. All right, we are 31 minutes into this. You have 29 minutes left to start sending out those invites and get some clients booked up for QBRs starting in April. All right. Or even, hey, if you want to tackle it early, there's nothing that says you can't do these in the last week of March. All right. That's perfectly acceptable, but get those on the books, get those rolling, and get those launched with your customers, and I think you'll see a lot of success with that. Again, if you've got any questions, you can reach out to Adam or I, coaching@virtualc.biz. We're happy to help you out with anything you got coming up. And with that being said, yep, no more new questions. We will see you guys next week. Y'all have fun.